His mother told him, "Go die in America." So in 1939, he came over, really, I think, as a missionary. He was a very early teacher, whom you may not have heard of, to come from Japan. He was a very important figure in the history of Zen and in its propagation to the West. And he was a unique character and individual. We're appealing to you this way because it's very important that this trip to Japan be documented as completely as possible. My name is Taiyun Michael Elliston, Abbot of the Silent Thunder Order and the Atlanta Soto Zen Center. Taiyun is my Dharma name. It means great cloud. It was given to me by my teacher, Soyu Matsuoka. We called him Sensei. Sensei is Japanese for teacher. It's an informal but affectionate term. Matsuoka Roshi had a legacy primarily in the United States. He spent most of his time here. And he was born in 1912 and died in 1997. He came over to the United States about 1939. 67 is when I first met him and started training with him in Chicago, where I was teaching at the School of the Art Institute in the University of Illinois. Zen had been in Japan for 800 plus years, and he said it was dead in Japan. So he said its rebirth would be seen here in America. So his mission coming here was the same as Master Dogen. Dogen was 13th century founder of what we call Soto Zen in Japan, which was to propagate genuine Zen practice. Zen is the meditation school, you might say, of Buddhism. Soto Zen is the Japanese form that most emphasizes sitting meditation. Zen is the most stripped down, simple form of meditation and Buddhist practice, you might say, of all the different forms, all the different schools. Zen is the simplest. While he did not ever become famous as some other Zen teachers have become, Sensei was part of the first generation of Zen priests to come here. He was one of the earliest, and I believe he was probably the first one who recommended Zen meditation for Westerners. Many of the early teachers did not think that we were ready for that. There was a lot of conflict developing in the world at that time, as you may recall. It led to World War II. And maybe that's part of the impelling force to say, I need to go to America now. And so he was interred in the camps here in this country during that war. But before the war and after, he was a big promoter of peace between the two countries. He was always promoting Japan to the United States, always promoting America to Japan. He traveled back and forth his whole lifetime trying to build bridges between the two countries and is known in Japan for that. So Matsuoka Roshi leaves behind him about a dozen active Zen teachers like myself are scattered around the country. So his accomplishments are more, you might say, in the students that he left behind, which is typical of most Zen masters in history, than any particular institution you might point at. The impact that a Zen teacher has is to be seen in their students. And so I hope my example shows his impact. We have published copies of his talks. One is called the Kyosaku, which is the name of the stick that we use in Zen practice. And one is called Mokurai, which means roughly silence is thunder, thunder is silence, and after which we named our order the Silent Thunder Order. This year, we are traveling to Japan in October in order to retrace his steps there from Sojiji Monastery, where he trained, to Komazawa University, where he was educated, and to his home temple. Eiheiji Monastery is another one we will visit, established by Dogen Zenshi, who I mentioned earlier. There we're hoping to find records of his presence there and get copies of those so that we can get them translated from Japanese into English as part of his archive. We have newsletters, photographs, a rather large archive of his life, and we're hoping to round it out in this trip to Japan. And hopefully find some people still alive who knew him, and maybe we can have some anecdotal stories about him. Why did he come to America in the first place? He was only 27 years old. Why would you make that decision to dedicate your life to this? How did he establish the Chicago Zen Center in the beginning with apparently no money? Who helped him? Who were his patrons, right? The other Japanese priests have told me that they came over and tried to establish a Zen Center and failed and went back. He had a relationship with Daisetsu Suzuki, very famous Rinzai scholar, and who introduced Zen, Rinzai Zen, to America, very well known for that. We'd like to know more about that. Who was his teacher before him? And before him, we don't know who they are. We don't know all those answers, and that's part of what we'd really like to know. We'd like to find out. It's a mystery. We are doing this video to appeal to you to help fund the film crew in traveling to Japan and tracing the roots of this great pioneer of Zen in America. And I would also like to encourage you to find out where your local Zen center is, begin practicing Zen yourself, meditation, and to join us online. You can find us at www.ascc.org or www.storder.org. The first is for the Atlanta Soto Zen Center, that's our website, and our national website is the Silent Thunder Order website. So please join us in this endeavor, and please help us with funding the documentation of this important historical trip to Japan.